177. Let's get to a random film this time, which I figured, every once in a while when there are slow periods or I don't have enough space to do a whole franchise, I figured I can knock out some random indie movies that are fairly unattached and I might not otherwise cover in a collection bonus show. And if you have any recommendations, suggestions, stuff you'd like to see on the show, please let me know through the contact information in the show notes. Let's get to the Rum Diary, which came out in 2011. It's based off the book by Hunter S. Thompson, directed by Bruce Robinson, who hasn't really done that much else. Stars Johnny Depp, Giovanni Ribisi, Aaron Eckhart, Amber Heard, Michael Rispoli, Richard Jenkins. Pretty good cast. And the synopsis is American journalist Paul Kemp takes on a freelance job in Puerto Rico for a local newspaper during the 1960s and struggles to find a balance between island culture and the expatriates who live there. So I remember when this one came out, it did not do very well financially. It flopped pretty hard. I only saw it, I believe, once it came out on Blu-ray. Didn't know anything about it other than it had Johnny Depp, and this was still really right before Johnny Depp really declined. This is also where he met Amber Heard. I knew a little bit about Hunter S. Thompson. I'd seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I'd seen many interviews with Johnny Depp talking about him because they were good friends, and I've read bits and pieces of Thompson's work, and it's, even to this day, very, very unique and way ahead of its time. And I've seen it a good handful of times, maybe 5 or 6 times over the years. And it's one of those films that is so in its own little world of Hollywood. It has a big budget. It's got this great cast. It's this very original, random, unpredictable, meandering journey sort of story. And I understand why some people don't love it. I've read some reviews on Letterboxd and other places where it's too unfocused for some people. It just doesn't really hit them in the right way for whatever reason. And I get it. It's not one for everybody because it is so plotless. But to me, I find this movie to be so refreshing. It's so impactful. It has a great tone. It's got some really, really funny moments. Johnny Depp is hilarious in this, but it's also got some really sincere, biting commentary on politics, on society as a whole that Hunter S. Thompson is most well known for in his writing. There are so many points where I'm thinking, wow, like that is so true. Probably my favorite line in the whole movie where Johnny Depp is talking to Amber Heard on Aaron Eckhart's boat, and she's saying, hey, you've written stuff, like you have value, like you should feel proud of what you've done. And he goes, no, I have no voice. And then he pauses for a second and says, I don't know how to write like me. And I think that is like, that speaks, I think any sort of writer, artist, creator, anything along those lines, I think that that is one of the most hitting the nail on the head lines for someone who wants to create something in a certain way. They obviously have a voice because they're an individual, but they cannot get, as in this case, cannot get the words out and the story out in the right way to where you feel, all right, this is me. This is my vision. It's just a mess for him. And so I think that is, I love that line so much, and it hits me every time. Besides that, the Puerto Rico setting, beautiful. And I think that they do a good job of showing the beauty of a location, no matter what country or wherever it might be, showing the beauty of that place, but also showing problems, whether it's poverty or crime or whatever else. And I think it does a good, realistic, to my knowledge, just as a normal person, of showing the black and the white of some part of the world. This is also one of Aaron Eckhart's better movies. Of course, he was in The Dark Knight, which I think will always be his best movie. He doesn't always have the best track record, in my opinion. I think he has a lot of duds, and he's a better actor than I think a lot of his movies may give credit to. But he's very good in this, fits that sort of sleazy, sketchy businessman very well. Amber Heard and Johnny Depp are like, I can understand why they went on to be a couple because they are perfect in this movie together. The chemistry, even everything from the costume design for both of them. I mean, for everyone in the movie, but for them especially, very, very strong in every respect. And as the title suggests, it's called the Rum Diary. So there is a alcohol fueled, drug fueled aspect to the movie, which is typical with Hunter S. Thompson as it is with Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I think I prefer this one over that one. That's just me, though. To me, this one feels a lot more grounded. The drunk sequences and all that stuff, I think at this point, that sort of sequence, especially if it's playing for humor and for crazy psychedelic visuals, I'm a little bored of that. That part of the movie would honestly be ironically, would be my least favorite part. I think the best part is the relationship between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and then that triangle with Aaron Eckhart. That's really the core of the movie. And that's why I feel like the third act is a little long. I sort of lose focus when it comes to that part in some points because it gets the main group of characters breaks up, and then Johnny Depp goes off on his own with his friend Sal to try and print one last newspaper with all these really shocking bit pieces and all that. And for better or worse, I just don't care about that as much within the context of the story. It's a good idea throughout the movie, but I feel like they spend a little too much time on that towards the end, where for most of the narrative, that's not the focus. At least that's what I got. So the third act would be the weakest part of the movie. Not that it's bad, but that's where the excitement, the allure, the comedy drops off a little bit. Some standout sequences, though, where Johnny Depp is going to Aaron Eckhart's house and he sees through the telescope Amber Heard and Aaron Eckhart having sex out on the boat. And Johnny Depp's reactions, like physical, facial expressions in this movie, are probably some of his best in his whole career. Like, it's so nuanced and so funny every single time. And he is so good in this. The sequence where they're being chased by the angry people from the restaurant and they're using the alcohol bottle to blow fire, and then they get wound up in court, and then they go back and find their car, and they have to, Johnny Depp and Sal, his friend, that is, they have to sit on top of each other and ride through the city. That's hysterical. The Carnival sequence where Amber Heard really goes off on her own and pisses everybody off. The conversations that Johnny Depp has with Aaron Eckhart's group about them trying to monetize Puerto Rico and these surrounding islands, I think that still really hits in terms of a economical, societal commentary and how people can take advantage of certain locations, of certain types of people based on where they are in the world or whatever else it might be. So this movie is, of all the movies that Johnny Depp has done, but also of 2010's one-off standalone films, I think this is one of the most underrated that I can think of off the top of my head. Every time I watch it, I'm like, this movie is so good, and I wish it had done better, because of all the movies that do well nowadays, regardless of what kind of film it is, I think this really deserves to have more of an audience. And I think the story is so out there that I guess it's hard for some people to latch onto it or get engaged because they have no context for it. But give it a chance, give it a rewatch, because there's so much there. So that one is a heavy 4 out of 5.